Today, we are talking about friendship. And Alex, one of the things that has been interesting is you and I have partnered together for so many years is we have a lot of people ask us about our friendship. And they've heard us on the podcast. They have maybe been to retreats with us and they know us in person. And they have wondered, how do you make your friendship work over so many years? And you seem to have a really healthy friendship. And so talk a little bit about our friendship and just how you have journeyed with me in this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was counting how many years have we been friends. I was 18 when we met. So that means it's been over 30 years. And we met in college. We have told this story before, but we met on a chorus line on the stage of the school play, school musical, a chorus line. And we had very much a chorus line story because I got promoted because somebody broke his limb and I got moved up so that I was standing next to you, and you were a senior and I was a freshman in college. And years later, we married best friends. So our husbands were roommates in college, and that kind of interwove our lives together. But we all know that we have friends who are married to our spouse's friends, like that doesn't necessarily make an automatic strong friendship. And we thought that a way to talk about our friendship is to talk about what we see in each other as we observe each other being friends with other people, and also as we experience friendship from each other, if that makes sense. So as a friend, I get to watch you be friends with other people, especially other women. And I also experience what it's like to be your friend. And so I can articulate some things that I think make you a great friend. So this isn't meant to be the Krista and Alex boasting show. This is meant to top 10 things that make us awesome. It is meant to really articulate, these are the things I see in Krista that make her a great friend and have made me a better friend, because I think I want to be like that. I observe you doing certain things, and you say the same is true of me. So we are going to talk about some things that we observe about each other.
Yeah. And along the way, we'll throw in a few other things that we've read about friendship that we think really rings true and that we see, or from psychologists or neuroscientists have really shown create solid friendships. Some research sprinkled in there. So Alex, one of the things that I think is so interesting that I really have experienced in my own life is the benefit of friendship. And neuroscience, again, I know I always beat that drum, but it really does back it up that there was a review of 38 studies on adult friendships, especially high quality friendships. So friendships where you can really count on people. They're really there for you and you feel that and know that. Well, it turns out in these 38 studies that it significantly predicts well-being and can protect against mental health issues like depression and anxiety. But not only that, in that Harvard study, which you can read the Good Life book and you can learn all about it, but it also expands your life. So it literally impacts your lifespan, which I think is so fascinating, more than quitting smoking, more than not using alcohol, more than exercise. Your quality relationships in many ways determine the physical quality of your life. And that link is fascinating. And it's proven in studies now. We actually have hard data that shows that. So I find that to be so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives us a reason to invest in friendships, though I don't know that we need one, because we all want quality relationships. We want quality friendships. And over, we hear the headlines that people in some ways are more connected than ever before. And it also in some ways are lonelier than they've ever been before. And so we are in some ways losing the art of what it means to have real friendship. And by real friendship, I mean people you can call when you're in the emergency room. Like that question of how many people would you be able to call if you were in an emergency room and needed somebody to come to the hospital to help you? That number is important because those are the people you can depend on, not out of obligation, but because they love you and care for you. So that's why we want to talk about friendship, because it impacts the quality of our lives. And as many of us are finding other relationships in our lives changing, the benefit of friendship is what's going to help us rise to meet the challenges of the moment. Maybe we are facing new things, new challenges, and friends who are standing next to us and supporting us and cheering us on may be the make or break of how we handle the moments of today. I mean, even before we were recording today, we were laughing about just some of the challenges that are going on these days in our families. And it's just our friendship allows us to support each other in a way that says, okay, I can do this. I'm not alone. I can rise to meet the moment because I am not facing this alone.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to say that as we go through these marks of good friends, today, I don't want there to be a feeling of discouragement, but encouragement, because every one of us can actually be a better friend. I mean, the things I'm going to say about Alex, I would like to possess more of those things. And so the heart is one of encouragement that let's both rise to be a better friend, and let's rise to seek out friendships that offer these characteristics. It's a both and that we can be working to be the kind of friend that we want to have, and we can seek people out who are this kind of friend.
And that is so true in all relationships, that if I want a strong marriage, my job is to work to be a better wife. And if I want better friendships, my work is to be the kind of friend that I want. So that's the spirit of it.
And the concept that good virtues birth more good virtues. I've just seen it over and over. Like generosity, it begets more generosity. That when you experience that from someone, it makes you want to be generous with someone. And so the more that we can cultivate that as a person with others, the more they actually then are going to be motivated to do it back or to pass it on.
Okay. Well, Krista, I want to jump in. I want to tell some people some things that I love about you as a friend that I have observed as your friend for over 30 years. And I'm going to start with one that has been consistent from the very beginning.
From the chorus line stage.
Yeah, and anybody who knows you is going to laugh when they hear this because it's so true. You greet people with energy. And by that, I mean you run to meet the car, you give the hug, you are so enthusiastic about how you greet people. And everyone feels like they're the person that you've been waiting for because of your enthusiasm from the very first second. And it makes people feel special. It just does. Whereas I might be a little more chill vibes going on. My kids know when they go to your house that it is not chill vibes when they arrive. It's a big deal. It's a celebration. And I was looking at some research that showed that most people make a first impression within 7 seconds, and that some people can make really accurate judgments of others within 1/10 of a second. And I think what we forget in relationships, whether it's friendship or marriage or parenting, is that we have first impression opportunities every day to say, I am so glad that you're here. Good morning. I am so glad to wake up in the same house as you. But as your friend, I feel like when I pick up the phone, it's like we haven't talked in 10 years and maybe we talked 2 days ago. So I love that you work so hard at greeting people with that high energy. And I try to do the same because I have to tell myself to do it. It's a conscious choice to do it. Whereas I think it might come a little more naturally for you.
I really like that reminder of treating everyone that way. My husband and I were just talking about that last night. Like, how can we step it up a little bit in even how we're greeting each other when we see each other? Like, we're just, as we're preparing for launching all of our kids into the world in the near future, that we have just talked about what we want the empty nest to look like eventually. And that's one of the things that we want to be excited to see each other. And we have to cultivate that.
Yep.
So I like that you brought that up. Okay. Alex, one of the things that I have always appreciated about you and has always been true is you are safe. And what I mean by that is that I know I can come to you with anything, and you, first of all, won't be surprised. I think that's actually a really important point, that you're not horrified by whatever it is, and you're realistic, and that you understand nuance in life, and you understand that relationships are layered and people are layered and complicated, and there's great things and there's hard things, and they coexist all at one time. And I appreciate that. You're very good at knowing this is true and this is true at the same time. And so that feels safe. And then also that you withhold judgment in that same moment. It's a really important quality that I know. For example, if I tell you something about one of my kids, that you don't love them less or judge them for whatever it is, or me, that I tell you something about me that you're like, yeah, okay, that I see that, I hear that, and I love you, and I see good in you, that it doesn't mean there's a label of bad or less than that goes on something.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think I work at reminding myself that two things can be true at the same time. Sometimes I have to tell myself consciously, there doesn't have to be conflict here. These two things can be true at the same time, and to hold that tension. And then I think around judgment, it gets to our own spiritual life.
Sure does.
That I am a sinner saved by grace, 100%. And so the more I'm in tune with that reality, which life gives me lots of opportunities for that humility, the more I recognize that's just who I am, and that's who we all are. And we're all stumbling through life, trying to do the best we can. And part of that probably comes with age too, because we think, when my kids, before they were born, I thought I had some parenting ideas, and well, they didn't last very long, or before I was married, or, before I had a career, whatever. But with life, you realize, oh, a lot of things happen. And so we try to work on that judgment-free zone. So thank you for saying that. But I just want listeners to know it's something that we can all work on too. Okay, Krista, I am going to pull out my book, Loving My Actual Neighbor, because you are the example I write about in my chapter about asking questions. You ask great questions, and you're a great listener. So sometimes you ask me about things and I think, why in the world would you care about this? I'm kind of boring myself, but you keep asking, so I keep talking, and you keep listening, so I keep talking. And because of that, you know me in a way that other people don't. I have some people in my life who are like, so tell me what's going on with you. And it's up to me to then decide what the important points are. But you ask specific questions, so then I'm not in the position to determine, okay, she wants to hear about this or she doesn't, or she cares about this or she doesn't. You just go there, you ask the questions, and I watch you do this with other people too. And that tell me more about that. And I want to know more about that. And follow-up questions. You ask a lot of follow-up questions when you know something's happening in my life. And how did it go? And tell me how that went. All those things allow you to know me better because it gives me permission to talk about myself. And it also tells me you're interested. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, much to my kids sometimes dismay. as I'm talking to their friends and asking questions. No, but I do think that is interesting, isn't it? That there is an interesting dynamic where some people welcome that and some don't. And that is something to think about as we're talking about friendship and rising to friendship. Do we want to be in relationship with people who will go there? And if we do, how are we cultivating that? And then also, are we letting other people go there with us? Because sometimes, and that's something I've had to work on too, is I always love to find out about other people, but I also need to stop and let other people find out about me and really reveal the same level of depth. And that is, I think, just a good thing to think about is, are we in that reciprocal place with our deep friendships where we are going there with each other and we're having that mutual vulnerability?
Yeah. And I do talk in that chapter on asking questions about reading people too, because you say some people, they're not that open. Whereas I'm very open. If people want to know, I'm fine telling almost anything. As long as I'm not revealing somebody else's secrets, you can know all my secrets. I don't care. But I've had to learn that not everybody is that comfortable with that.
Yeah. And therefore the relationship will probably only go so far. And that also tells us, okay, this friendship is kind of in this category. And that's also important to know.
Right.
Okay. Well, the next one is you are consistent and loyal. And I would say this is one of your greatest strengths. I mean, hands down, one of your greatest strengths. You are someone that I never have to wonder what I'm going to get. And there is something very sacred about that, in that you're not moody. And also you show up the same no matter what's going on. You show up the same. And so that consistency adds a lot of stability to our friendship. I don't have to wonder, is she going to be hot? Is she going to be cold? Is she going to be mad? Is she going to be happy? Is she going to, like, there's not that wondering. I always know you are going to show up as you, and you really loving me in our friendship and investing in our friendship. Like, there's just a safety there, kind of back to that safety thing. But also, you are someone who has chosen friendship over many years. And I've seen this in other friendships that you have. It's not just in our friendship. You have long-standing friendships that you have chosen over a very long period of time because you have chosen to. And it is a choice. You're not that flash in the pan friend where you're like, oh, someone better has come along, so see ya, I'm going with this friend and leaving this one behind because you're not as exciting anymore. And that creates really safe friendships when that is present. And so I appreciate your loyalty and your consistency so much.
Well, thanks. I kind of figure if people want me around, stick around. It's that Enneagram 6, right? I'm the loyalist. Like those kinds of things, long-term relationships are really important to me, and they're my natural bent. Which can be challenging when sometimes you need friends just for a season. And I am not great at those, honestly. I'm much better at the 20-year commitment than I am the 2-year commitment. But you said in relation to vulnerability, that there are maybe categories of friends, and that could be true for longevity as well. And I really, really so value people who have stuck with me over the years, that they've been loyal to me. So it's also a mutual value. Like I've only stayed in relationship with people who have been reciprocal in that. I don't think I've annoyed anybody by staying friends forever, but there is that selection process early on for me where I think that discerning process of this is the kind of person I want to be friends with for 20 years.
And it feels like an honor to be in that circle with you. And that is, I think, as we're looking at our friendships, and as people are wondering in their own life, who are those people? Who are the people that maybe you've kind of let go of a little bit, but who are really solid friends to you, and you can reinvest in those relationships and you can bring those back. I mean, my best friend from growing up, she was my best friend from 3rd grade through college, and just a consistent person in my life. But in our raising kids years, we haven't been able to spend as much time together because we live in different states and it's harder, and we both have 4 children. But as my life changes, I'm actually reinvesting in that friendship to try and spend more time with her than I was. Our love has never stopped. We are so committed to each other. But the actual time that I've had has been less because of our season of life. And now is my time to start reinvesting. But again, that's going to take intention. It doesn't just happen. We have to create those moments. If we want to have long-standing friendships that stay deep and stay like where we're really known with each other, we have to make an effort for that to be the case.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because one of my older girls just asked me a couple of weeks ago, how have you stayed friends with, the friends I've had for a long time from high school and college? We just visited my best friend from middle school and high school when we were in Seattle. And I only see her once every 5 years at this point. But we were in town and she absolutely made it a priority. Her parents made it a priority for us to see each other. And I said, sometimes we go a year without talking to each other, but we know because of our history that doesn't indicate that we love each other any less. And that's gets to the heart of believing the best in each other and not getting offended, which is such a huge part of friendship, not taking offense quickly, and to say, I know she's busy. She's really busy. I think I'm busy. She's really busy. And she knows I'm busy. And so we just say, we'll see each other when we can, and we'll celebrate it when we can, and we'll continue. And as my kids are starting to get older, I'm feeling that freedom to leave, and her kids are still younger, so I can go visit her more, just like you said. So I have been reflecting on that lately, because my girls have been asking, how do I maintain the friendships I have now for a lifetime? And how do I decide who is in that category? And sometimes that just kind of happens naturally. And over time, you discover who you want to be in touch with for a long time. Okay, Krista, back to you. Part 2 of you asking questions is that then you are an incredible listener. So we can ask all kinds of questions and then not really pay attention when somebody is answering. But you, as I have observed you listen with your whole body. And by that, I mean you give someone your undivided attention, you face your face and your whole body, but you lean in. I mean, you get so close to people physically, right? Don't you? But it means that they know that they are your main priority in that moment. And what a gift in a time when people are distracted more and more, when we don't have these blocks of uninterrupted time to say, no, I am going to create uninterrupted time because I have agency right now and I can do that. And I'm going to give you my undivided attention is such an incredible gift. I feel like more than ever. And when it's your whole body, it reminds me of just the fact that we're incarnational people. And so being together physically in the same physical space, but then using our body as a way to communicate is so important and gets to that very primal part of who we are, that we want people's attention and we want it with their whole selves. And you do that even visually with your whole body, but also it gets back to then you ask follow-up questions, and I can tell, and I know others can tell, that you are truly listening to what they say and want to know more with a spirit of curiosity that is so refreshing and unique.
Thank you. Didn't Seinfeld do an episode on close talkers?
Yeah.
I know. No, but I appreciate that so much. But my sister and I were talking about that the other day, how we are close talkers. We we will get up close. But a part of that, right, is that I really do want to know people. And, as we're looking at this idea of friendship, how much do we want to know people over the desire for other people to know us? Because I think when we're seeking out friendship, we a lot of times just say, well, I wish someone knew me. I wish someone, but how much are we really wanting to know others first and letting that lead as the motivation of creating a friendship? I think that's a good question for us to ask. Okay, let's talk about you being a sharpener. So you don't just agree with me all the time. You make me think, and you make me process in ways that challenge me and are different than the way my brain naturally thinks. You and I are wired differently. And this makes me better. And it helps me to see that there are varying lenses on any given situation. And that's so helpful for me because I have my lens, and my lens is my lens. And I think what you've taught me over many years is how to take off my lens and put on someone else's. And you do that because you're a thinker, and you naturally, one of your natural giftings is to see things from varying people's perspectives. And so that has made me better over a lot of years. And then I would say the other thing is you don't run when it gets uncomfortable. You work through it, you stay in it, you stay curious. And that is a gift because I think we don't like being uncomfortable. And I think we are in a cancel culture more so than ever, where you say one thing that doesn't land on someone and they cancel you and they cancel your friendship. And I just don't know that that is the way forward in real friendships. I think we have to allow for people to have a different opinion than we do. We have to allow for people to come at things differently and to still be really close friends. And in fact, appreciate that, knowing that it sharpens us and makes us better when we don't agree on everything.
Yeah, that's the key to friendship. And especially now when we can get in these camps, I think, of you're this kind of person and I'm this kind of person, so we can't be friends. To say, no, it gets back to that two things can be true at once. We can disagree on this issue, which may be a very core issue for us, and we can still be friends. Now, probably the more core it is, that's going to indicate the depth of friendship because there may be some trust there. But I really work at that. And because the world tells us a different story. The world tells us we should dismiss people entirely because they believe or vote or think one way. So thank you for saying that. I will say one thing you do for me that has been very healing and helpful is that you validate my feelings. And that has helped me heal in a lot of ways. That I am given permission to have the feelings I have about whatever they may be. And usually it's, more on the hard feelings things. And even if it doesn't make sense, like I try to talk myself out of things sometimes, like I shouldn't feel this way because blah, 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 blah. And you remind me, no, you can still have those feelings. You remind me those two things can be true at the same time. And then that gives me freedom to feel them, but really it gives them freedom to be who I am. And then they don't have the same control because I can say, yeah, I feel that. And I'm going to move forward in that. I'm not going to wallow in it, but just having somebody acknowledge and validate them then allows me to move forward.
It's really good. It's really good to think about, like, how can we be doing that in our conversations with each other? How can we be paraphrasing what that person is saying and empathizing, having that empathy of, I can see how you feel that way. And I see you hurting in this way. And it's just really good to think about and how we can repeat that back to people. One of the other things I love about you as a friend that I personally value so much, this is really high on my list, is you love my family. And you're in their fan club. It's a big deal to me.
Yeah, I totally am. President, self-appointed president.
You care about them as individuals. You ask about them. You show up to my son's wedding with your family. You make the financial investment that is a big deal to be there. You care about my husband and about our relationship. And you encourage me in my marriage. You care just as much about Eric as you do me. And a part of that is we are woven in a unique way. And I understand that, that through our husbands, we are woven a little bit differently, but I think you would be that anyway. You are for Team Gilbert. And that matters a lot because I know that no matter what happens, you will be there for us as a unit. And whether that's something happening with one of my kids or with Eric and myself or whatever it is, that you are going to encourage me in the direction that is for my family.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly feel that from you too. And I think it gets back to wanting the best for each other. I know that you are going to be thriving if you have a strong marriage. I know that you are going to be thriving if you have someone to support you as you're going through something difficult in your family or is celebrating with you in your family. And so it's that spirit of wanting what's best for each other. And I'm trying to think of who wouldn't want that. Well, maybe somebody who feels threatened by other people in somebody's life, whether it's their family or other friends. And I think we have both really tried to say, I am not threatened by other friendships. I'm not threatened by your family because I feel safe and confident in our friendship, that I know that you're a multidimensional person and I am too, and that we can't be everything for each other. And so in order for you to thrive, you need to have this web of relationships around you thriving. And so of course, I'm going to be that cheerleader for that. So here's one thing you do that I have tried to learn from that is a practical way that you show this love for my family and for me, is you remember important dates. So this is a very practical thing that I think our listeners can latch onto as far as follow-up for things. You remember birthdays, you remember big things that are happening for me at work that aren't related to you, and you celebrate milestones with me, but you also check in on me if you know that something's going to be hard. And I remember once you told me that you will put reminders in your phone to call somebody if you know that something is happening that day for them. And that was such a practical model to me that I have since followed of, yeah, I want to be the kind of friend who is like that. And so that has been something that has shown me that I am a priority to you, that you take the time to remember these details, not just for me, but for the people around me.
Well, my brain is getting worse. I will just say that. So maybe at one point in my life, I could remember off the top of my head. And sadly, that is not the case anymore. So I really am having to put reminders in my calendar or I set my alarms a lot, especially if I want to be praying for someone at a certain time of day, if they have a big thing happening and I want to be praying for that in that, as that begins, then I have to set my reminders and my timers and all of that. But it is important to me because what are really big things for my friends are big things for me. Like it is true. Like it's big for me too, because I'm in your life. And if I'm in your life, like I feel a part of it. I feel like I'm a part of your journey and I want to be in that space with you. And usually prayer is the best way for me to do that. Okay. Well, I would say one of the things I look for in a friend and that you possess is you lead with faith and hope. And one of the things I hear you say a lot, I mean, for many, 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 many years, is you ask the question, what is God doing here? And whether that's a situation I'm going through or a situation you're going through, you have a lens of faith and you look to scripture to help inform whatever situation it is. And because of that, because of where you look for, whether it's solutions or not even solutions, but where you look to stand in that, it brings hope because in scripture, in God, we find hope. And so you pair those things and you bring those to the table. And that points me in a direction that I want to go. I want to be more faithful as I go through this journey. And I need friends to remind me when I am in places and spaces that are hard and where I'm not looking up at the moment, I'm just looking down at the problem. Because it's usually the problem. It's usually that, right? But where I'm looking down at something, you lift my head and you bring me higher in that moment. And it's really valuable.
Thank you. You for sure do that for me too. But I think that's the key to a faith-filled friendship. And that's true for our friendship is we are both women of Christian faith. That's not true of all of my friendships. But even with women who aren't following Christ, I still feel like that's my role a little bit. Maybe I don't use those words to ask, what is God doing here? But I can still have that posture. And I can ask God, what are you doing here? And how can I be a good friend to her right now in that? How can I join you in the redemptive work that you're doing? Because he's always making all things new. And so where are you making something new that I can encourage her in is a great way to ask that. But we have to have faith for each other because we're human and we don't hold faith all the time. And so to have friends that remind us when we are needing that extra dose, that's what God gives us friends for, to do that.
I love all of that.
So thank you for doing that for me. One thing we haven't talked about, but I think is key, especially in female friendships, is you keep confidences. I know when I tell you something, it is not going to get spread all over creation, which even saying that, it just makes me laugh. Like picturing you do that is so not you, that it just is, it allows me to open up because of course, if I'm going to be vulnerable, I want it to be received with confidence that you are going to keep it in confidence. And I know this because you don't tell me other people's stuff. And we have a lot of friends in common. And sometimes I will ask, how is this person doing? And I know she's going through something hard, but I don't know the details, but you do, and you don't disclose them. And that is helpful for me because one, I don't need to be threatened by that. You're allowed to have friendships with other people, but also it tells me that's the kind of friend you are. And so I can trust you. And we have a little thing from Psychology Today that says trustworthiness is often the make or break element in any interpersonal relationship. Any breach, regardless of perceived magnitude, can devastate a relationship. Trustworthiness is comprised of several components, including honesty, dependability, and loyalty. And while each is important to successful relationships, honesty and dependability have been identified as the most vital in the realm of friendships. And that, I'm sure, gets to all of my Enneagram 6 things that I value. Like, I want to know that I can trust you. I want to know that I'm getting what I think I'm getting. And by you keeping things confidential, I have the freedom to open up, because I just wouldn't. I wouldn't if I thought there was a risk of you breaking that in some way.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I try and tell people as well, I don't tell my husband either, that if it's between he and I, then of course, right, we have open communication, but there is a vault in me that is reserved for vulnerable things that my friends have shared that is not my husband's vault. And he doesn't need to know that information. And I think sometimes even that, I know maybe people have different views on that, but I actually feel that when it comes to my friendships, I know with kids, it can be different, but with my friendships, that's between them and me. It's not between them and me and my husband.
Yeah, I would say, especially if it's same-sex friendships, because sometimes that's right. Like, because
Good
as
point.
your girlfriend, until I just am
Yes.
thinking of Andy Crouch in his statements of like how he protects the integrity of his marriage, is that he says women will often tell him vulnerable things. And if it's a woman telling him, he will say, I just want you to know, anything you tell me, I may also tell my wife, like, because we're on the same team. So in this, we're talking female friendships.
Yes. Yes.
And I do think it's different with kids.
It's different with kids.
Yeah. Sorry,
It's
if mom
different
knows,
with
dad
kids.
knows too.
I know. Though, to be open and honest, I think is important in that that we're being transparent. And so if we are going to share something with a spouse or whatever, that, like Andy Crouch, he says, you need to know. And I think that's important, because then we're not sharing out of, in a way that may feel compromising to someone else.
That's right.
Okay. You have humility. You say you're sorry. You don't assume you're always right. Bringing in Psychology Today, again, they have a quote that says, the ability to admit to shortcomings is a highly undervalued quality in a person. A lot of growth can come from the ability to admit when one is wrong and to apologize accordingly. And this is the part I like the most. It shows maturity, compassion, and high self-esteem. And what I think is so interesting about that is I'm not sure where this comes from in our heads, but we think that being proud is actually what shows confidence and high self-esteem. That's actually not true. It's actually when and I study this with leadership as well. When we look at the most effective leaders, they are always the ones who lead with appropriate vulnerability, not weird vulnerability, because there's that, but who lead with the appropriate humility and vulnerability. And they're able to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong on that. Let's talk about this, because that actually shows high self-esteem and confidence. It shows maturity. It shows compassion. It shows the ability to see things from another person's perspective. So humility is so key. I feel like this is a literal, like, cornerstone of a friendship, is having this quality present.
Yeah, I think we both value it so much that we've even woven it into a value of everything we create together, because we really, it's just, a person of humility is a person who is right-sized in the world. and remembering that God is in charge, that God is God and that we are not. That doesn't mean we can't be confident in our human qualities, but it's still remembering that we're human, which means we're flawed and we can't be good at everything. And so when you are confident in the few things that you're good at, I'll say for me, it's only a few things, but I am good at a few things, that then I can with humility say, you're better at this than I am, or you got this right and I didn't. So I appreciate that we value that in our friendship. Okay, we are running out of time. And I'm just going to end with my one thing that I can't not say because it's my favorite trait in a person, and that is generosity. You are generous with your attention, with your resources, with your talents. I know that if you have something that I need, you will share it with me. And that to me is the spirit of God's goodness, because God is generous. And it also gets back to that humility, because every good thing we have is from him. And so generous people, I think, recognize I am blessed by this. And so I want to be a blessing to others. So thank you for blessing me in all the ways that you do.
I've been thinking a lot about that lately, scarcity versus generosity, and how quickly we can forget to be grateful for the things that we take for granted that are right in front of us, or just not see it for what it is, not see it for the goodness that it is, and then have that just posture of generosity because we are so focused on the goodness of God and the goodness of what he's given. We can just lose sight of that so quickly and start grabbing at things and not be people who share openly with others. And man, it is so vital, isn't it? It is so vital to an abundant life. I don't know that we can have an abundant life without it.
So of course, it's a great trait in a friend, and I see it in you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. This has been a really beautiful conversation. Thank you for the many, many generous things that you said. And
I could keep going. I could keep going.
And for your friendship of 30 years. I mean, what in the actual world that we could even say that? But to quote Ben Rector, you can't make old friends, and you are one of my old friends. And it is a dear, dear gift that I will forever treasure in my life. To friendship,
to old friends. Yeah.
Let's rise up to friendship, everyone, as we are looking and as we are evaluating our friendships this fall. Let's look at our own way of being a friend and rise up. Bye, everyone.
Bye.